Okay, so we just finished part one. This is actually part two because we didn't have another time to get into these other charts, which I want to show you. So here, yeah, we just finished the March 2020 Thought Paper Bible Parallels, where we had a look at how all these things parallel and line up. For the seventh head and the eighth head, and who the son of perdition is, being the eighth. The one that receives a deadly wound is the one that comes to his end and lasts for a short period of time is the seventh. But yeah, so we have these charts that we did, which is part one. This is part two for the thought papers 4 2019 and 5 of 2019, which we went into it more in detail here. See, we were able to line everything up and explain it. Okay, so that was the first one, the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet, that Jesus referred to. Okay, and then there was the second one that we also went in and explained a little more and summarized things and you know, lined them up and categorized them so it'd be easy to understand. Which the thing is, see, I'll just briefly show you this. You know, because right here in this box, Revelation chapter 13, as Laodicea interprets, this is your 508, 538, 1798 interpretation, which means you have to read verse 1 and then verse 2, but then you have to read verse 5 that has the 42 months starting, 1260 starting in 538. And you have to manipulate and misinterpret Revelation 13 to arrive at this conclusion because of the 42 months coming before, with 538 taking you to 1798, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, 1798. See how you have verse 1, 2, 5, and see how you have to move the verses around and manipulate them and misinterpret them to arrive at the whole 1798 routine? Because the Bible says, verse 3, verse 4, verse 5, in that order. It's telling you what happens in that order. And we don't have to think, well, you know, just because it's, you know, listed in order doesn't mean that it's in that order, which makes absolutely no sense at all. Okay, so let's have a look, and I'll turn this camera off because you don't need to see me. Okay. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Then it's healed. And then 42 months. That's the way the Bible has it. Which means that the 1260 in Daniel is true, going from 554 to 1814 with 5 fallen kings, with Napoleon abdicating in 1814 at the end of the 1260. But okay, here we have not talking about the 5 fallen kings, which is what Daniel's talking about. Okay, with 554 to 1814 with the 1260, and the 1844 with the 1290, which Mandelin says everything surrounding the 1290. He said to the question that was asked to Abate, until when concerning these things? He said until 1844, not 1798. Let that sink in. And that doesn't change. It never did, never will. We just interpret it wrong based on the mistake in some of the figures on the charts with 508, 538, and 1798. So what does this mean? Speaking of one of its heads, not the 5 that are fallen. There's wounded to death, which has to be the 8th, and then the healing, and then 1260. What does this mean? It means there's a 1260 from 554 to 1814, but there's a future 1260 that has not been fulfilled 3.5 years, literal. So the first was prophetic, 1260 years, each day for a year. This is 42 months. This is literally 42 months. This is literally 3.5 years. Okay? Because you can't have the deadly wound in 1798 and then 1260 years after that, or even 1260 or 3.5 days. I mean, what happened in 3.5 years, 42 months, or 1260 literal days after 1798? Okay, doesn't make sense, doesn't line up. 1260 years. Well, let's just do it. This is just so you can see. Okay. So let's pull our calculator over here. So 1798 plus 1260 years brings us to the year 3058 minus 2022 is, we've got 1036 years left before we even get near to Christ's second coming? I don't think so. If you ask why, please write us for more detailed information why we're not going to be around here, even if we did live for the next 1036 years. We're not going to be around here, and this is not going to go on and last for another 1,000 years before Christ comes, based on Jesus's own prophecy in Luke 21:24. Okay. This generation shall now pass away that saw these signs in 1967 and 1980. Generation will not pass away till all be fulfilled. So it's not going to take this long. Okay. So that's that. Okay, and just leave those open for now. But what we're going to be going back to is the first part, okay, of the transgression and abomination of desolation. So this was just, and we're not going to get into all the detail of this either during this, maybe yet another time. We've got these, we can come back to them. The links for these are all down in the description box below, with thought papers that went along with them, which are these, okay? These two. So what do we have here? We have the type. We have here the antitype. And then we have something relating to Laodicea. But for the first one, and see, this is zeroing in on just this one regarding 70 weeks and this antitypical one. The second chart was part 2, backed up and went to the first type and the second type, and not just this one. And yeah, this one. But it's got them all listed out here. Okay, so there was this abomination of Daniel 9:27 that Jesus referred to and was pointing to the people that lived at this time in Matthew 24:15. He was telling them in this verse and chapter, for those who lived here, that there was going to be an abomination. Okay, get ready. Because this relates to the Messiah being cut off for the overspreading abominations that happened here at the cross where they crucified the Messiah. This overspreading, which went from overspreading from here, and it overspread to here, and then it overspread to 70 AD, with 66 and 70 AD. For the overspreading of abominations, because he was cut off, he shall make it desolate. This was made desolate. Your house is left unto you desolate, he said, remember? Okay. And this is what the 70 weeks was about. You had the first 7 weeks, and the 62, and then the 1 week. 457 was the kickoff for the 70 weeks of the 490 years, terminating in 34 AD. But in the midst of that week, 31 AD, he caused the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. So all of this became irrelevant. Abomination of desolation. He said, stand in the holy place, standing where it ought not. Jerusalem compassed with armies, desolation nigh. I mean, this is all this right here, right? Okay, so the abomination spoken by Daniel the prophet equaled the overspreading of abominations. Jerusalem compassed with armies, the people of the prince, which was, these people depicted right here, the people of the prince, they destroyed the city and the temple and the sanctuary, desolations, okay? And there's evidence for that. Okay. Yeah, we always thought it was the Yeah, the Romans came in and they surrounded it, but it was, well, what was the reason? Okay, because this is your type third scenario, and this is your antitypical first scenario. So here's this scenario with this abomination, but there was more, and the fact that Jesus told these people living at this time, all right, when you see the abomination, it was a sign for them. It was a sign for this scenario right here, but it's also going to be apotelismatic, which means a second. There's going to be more than one fulfillment of the same prophecy. Apotelismatic, more than one fulfillment of the same prophecy. So there was this application for the abomination. It warned them for here. And what you're going to see here is it's actually warning us apotelismatically. Abomination spoke by Daniel, this scenario right here, which is future for Revelation 13 of this deadly wound and healing in 42 months. So there's a 1260 between here from 554 to 1814, and there's a 1260 coming up here in the future. Okay, so that's what this is all about. So that's one scenario. That's the third type. It's a type. Here's the antitype, which was against Christ's antitypical or daily high priestly administration, where the little horn took away the daily from 554 with Justinian's issuance of the royal pragmatic sanction, because that little horns, that priest king combined between Justinian and the papacy, lasted for 1290 years, because the question was asked until when concerning the daily, which is about this right here, going on in the heavenly sanctuary, and the little horn's transgression abomination against it. Until when? He said, unto 2,300 days. Okay, this is your 1844. So that's how we know that the 1290 and the 2300 terminated in 1844 together, because the question was asked until when concerning the daily and the transgression for 1290 years. He said unto 1844. So you can't have the 1290 ending in 1798, because the men in linen, right here pictured as our great high priest, said it was 1844, not 1798. Okay. And then you have the desolations of Laodicea, and this is your antitypical second scenario, because the antitypical second scenario application of the desolations in Daniel is seen in the General Conference session of 1980, where the leadership of Laodicea, on behalf of the delegates of the world field, accepted into their fundamental beliefs the central doctrine of that little horn that took away that daily and transgressed for 1290 years between here and here. They accepted into their fundamental beliefs that central doctrine of the little horn as fundamental beliefs number 2 and 4, Triune Trinity and this eternal Son of God. Error, because there was this gospel of the kingdom from 34 AD, known as the probation for corporate bodies, which included Laodicea. In 1844, the high priestly antitypical final atonement administration began. And it concerns the tabernacle of the congregation regarding Laodicea, because they're corporate. Luke 21:24 was fulfilled. 1980, Jerusalem was made the capital of Israel. After the Six-Day War of June 1967, where Jerusalem, Jesus said, corporate probation, or the kairos, or probation for the nations, would be over. And Jerusalem was no longer trodden down by the nations. That happened in 1967. 1980, Jerusalem was made the capital of Israel. So the gospel of the kingdom ceased in 1980 for Laodicea. And so that's where all that fits in. But when we go to the second part, we have the first type, the second type, the third type regarding the type, Jerusalem desolations. Okay. This is all the type, this first line right here, okay? All this, first line, okay? Does that make sense? I don't know, can I take this and, yeah, no, I don't want, just this type. Okay, so we had this, the first type of Jerusalem desolations regarding Daniel 1:1, 9:2, 17 and 18. This was around the time 607 to 606 BC by Nebuchadnezzar. And this is your 70 years, exile from 537. Let's see, 70 years to 537, 536 BC. Okay, so here's your first type, and it was a type desolation regarding Jerusalem. And then we come to the correct and appropriate application of Antiochus Epiphanes in Daniel 11 from Kislev 168 to 165 BC, which lasted only 3 years and 2 months, which doesn't come anywhere close to half days or the 2300 for Daniel 8:14, which is why Antiochus Epiphanes did not fulfill Daniel 8:14. So that's his Jerusalem desolation, okay, of Antiochus Epiphanes between this time, right there, a little brief period of time, has nothing to do with Daniel 8:14, only Daniel 11. So hopefully that makes sense. And then we have the third type, Jerusalem desolation, okay, that Jesus referred to in Matthew 24:15. When you see the abomination, right here, when you see this, look at this, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, okay, whoso readeth, let him understand, take heed, okay, and they saw this, and that's why this was a fulfillment of that abomination and transgression of desolation. But it wasn't the end, because in his discourse in Matthew 24:15, it wasn't just a sign for them. Remember, it was general signs that would apply to both the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the world. So apotelismatically, this, regarding this 1260, there was going to be a future apotelismatic 1260. And this is where Revelation 13 fits in with the 42 months, which is literal days, 3.5 years, 42 months. Which means this, Revelation 13, is not in the past, it's in the future. And we're going to see a deadly wound to one of the heads. He comes to his end. He lasts a short space. And then the deadly wound is healed. And the eighth head rocks onto the scene. Okay, the son of perdition. Your Antichrist. Your Hoanamos, that wicked one that's destroyed by Christ with the brightness of his coming. Okay. So that's where the first type, the second type, and the third type desolation fit in with Nebuchadnezzar, Antiochus Epiphanes, and what took place in 31 AD, 66 and 70. Okay. And then we have the admate. Hebrew means translated as until when, how long? Until when, what? The question was asked, admate. You open your Bible, Daniel 8. Then I heard one saint speaking. This is this wonderful number, the man in linen. He's speaking. And this another saint, he hears, right? And so he says unto the one that was speaking, that certain, which in the Hebrew, certain, Almoni, wonderful number, the man in linen, angel of the Lord. So this another saint asks, the wonderful number, the man in linen, admate, until when? So how long? Or until when? When is the ending point for the vision concerning the daily? This is Daniel 8:13. Until when shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation? The transgression of desolation by the last prior 5 verses, which was the little horn that takes away the daily. Sanctuary was cast down the truth to the ground. Okay, So, abmate, until when? How long? Until when shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation by the little horn, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And he, another saint, the certain saint, Almoni, the wonderful number that doesn't get anything wrong, numbers or dates or anything. And he said unto me, before I read what it does say, I want to read what it doesn't say. It does not say, and he said unto me unto 1798. It says unto 2,300 days. That's 1844, as you may be familiar with. So in your mind, lock it in, 1844. What goes into 1844? The daily, the vision concerning the daily, and the transgression by the little horn against it. Because when you get to Daniel 12:11, from the time that the daily shall be taken away, the abomination make a desolate set up. What time is that? Well, we don't. Just say we don't know yet. There shall be 1,290 days. So you have the ending point in Daniel 8 as being 1844. You have the starting point in Daniel 12 as has to be 1,290 years back from 1844, which can only equal 554. Okay, so that's how this all correctly lines up with the first antitypical scenario. Okay, and then comes apotalismatic. There's more than one fulfillment of the same prophecy. And this is your Daniel 8:13 and Daniel 12:11. Transgression and abomination was against this for this period of time. Unto when? Here. From the time here, because it said 1,290 years back from here has to be this. And I just so hope this helps. When you come to the second antitypical scenario, remember this relates to Laodicea, Revelation 3, priest with, everything, didn't need anything else. 1980, this is your Luke 21:24 scenario. And what took place with General Conference in 1980, what was accepted, that was brought out of the trash can, that needed to remain there, which was this right there, and what needed to remain at the forefront, but was then tragically trashed into the theological trash heap and dumpster. And garbage with the Triune Trinity and Eternal Son of God error was brought out of the dumpster. Okay, so that's where that fits in. Okay, because you have here's the compilation. Here's the verses, the chapters for each mention of it. Here Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation, what did that refer to? Well, it was a warning for them living at this time. It was going to be a warning for at this time. Okay? And because he used it at this point right here, okay, in 31 AD, right before he was crucified, signs for what was coming here and what was coming as a sign at the end of the world, which is where this third antitypical scenario fits in, which is why it's future and can only be future because you can't have 1260 coming after 1798. Now we can correct it. (554, 1290, 1844). Apotalismatically, when you see the abomination of desolation, which is what this eighth head is going to do for 42 months, when you see that abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, whoso readeth, let him understand. We're going to need to know this. Okay? One of his heads is wounded to death. Lasts for a short time, comes to his end. Deadly wound was healed. They worship the dragon. How do they worship the dragon? This is where the Elohim Declaration series and the Great Declaration, which is the thought paper and video that we just published. See the YouTube channel on 5agendas.com. Okay? This is where it all comes into the picture. And it's, the Elohim declaration, the great declaration. Knowing the truth of the Godhead, that is the antidote that's going to, be the warning, be the information that will help you to know and learn and understand, to keep you from, so you don't have to worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and worship the beast, and join those who say, who's like unto the beast, who's able to make war with him. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great blasphemies. You don't want to be saying the same thing as them. And power was given unto him to continue after the deadly wound, after its healing, after all this worship scenario, after he's given him a mouth to speak great blasphemies and power, then comes your 42 months. There's your real, literal 1263 and a half years. And we're going to live through it. Okay? So here's a, we've actually not published this. This actually may not be done, but I'll share it with you. And as far as these arrows go, I hope they're still all lined up correctly. They didn't get, mismatched, but just have a look. Okay, so here's another comparison between Revelation 13, 17, and 2 Thessalonians. I saw one of his heads, seventh head, as it wounded to death. Now this seventh head is the he that must continue short space. Why? Because it was wounded to death. And his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. Which beast? And the beast that was and is not, even is the eighth. So this beast is the eighth, head or king, of the seven, goeth into perdition. Why does he go into perdition? Because he is called, 2 Thessalonians, remember, the son of perdition. And he continues for 42 months. This eighth is the mystery, is what, is, remember, the mystery of iniquity is Satan. And so this mystery of iniquity is already working. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked, this eighth head, because this mystery of iniquity is promoting and sending forth this, however you want to say it, this eighth head. Because when he's revealed, it says, the time's going to come, the Lord's going to consume him, the spirit of his mouth, and destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him, this eighth head, who's coming and working, and everything that he's going to do is going to be according to, Satanism, Luciferianism, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. Okay, this son of perdition, he goes into perdition. This eighth head, he continues 42 months. But before that, this seventh head, wounded, short space. Okay, and remember Daniel 11, which isn't here. He comes to his end, and none shall help him. Okay, because remember, 5 kings are fallen: Justinian, Charlemagne, the Great, Charles V, and Napoleon. And one is Victor Emmanuel, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, short space, Daniel 11, comes to his end, wounded. That's one of the heads. It doesn't say a horn, a little horn, or pope. None of the popes were kings anyway. And there's all these, these facts that, help us be able to draw, finally, a true, complete, and honest, accurate interpretation conclusion. And he, he does this with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. People think it's righteousness, but they're deceived. And them that perish. Why? Because they didn't have a love and want to know the truth. So here's your seventh head in Revelation 13. 17, you got this eighth head. Okay? As well as the seventh. And this one that continues, this eighth one that continues 42 months. Okay, so here's your seventh head again. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. There you go. One of the heads, there's a knife pointing at it. We did this with felts for, illustrative purposes. And when he cometh, see, that's 13. He receives a deadly wound. The 7th head, continue a short space. And the 8th head, while this was wounded, okay, when the 8th comes along, he's given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, power, continue 42 months. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th head, is of the 7 and goeth in perdition. 2 Thessalonians calls him the son of perdition. That man of sin is going to be revealed. This 8th head, whoever he is, okay, there's your 8th head. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, because he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. He exalts himself above all that is called God or worshipped. There's your Antichrist. So, yeah, hopefully we can get this out someday. So there's not a link for this, but look, if this helps you, I can, our email's in the description box below. And, because this may need some more work on it, some things that we can add and, make it look a little easier. So there you go. There is your Bible parallels between the guy in 2 Thessalonians, who's revealed as the 8th in Revelation 17 and 13. And there's your the guy that's in Daniel 11, otherwise known as one of the heads that receives a deadly wound. Okay? And lasts for a short space. So hopefully this helps. God bless until next time. And hopefully we can keep moving forward this, as building blocks and get into more detail. God bless and take care.